In Straw, Tyler Perry presents perhaps his most intimate and emotionally piercing work to date. Departing from his more familiar territory of melodrama and family-centered comedy, Perry crafts a quietly explosive psychological thriller that strips away artifice and lays bare the weight of black womanhood under relentless duress. Anchored by an electrifying and deeply wounded performance by Taraji P. Henson, the film tells the story of a woman driven past the limits of what the human spirit can bear. Straw is not just a story of one woman's breakdown. It is a mirror held up to the structural neglect and emotional invisibility that defines the lives of many working-class women in America. The film opens in near silence, a quiet morning in a small, dim apartment. Jania Wilkinson is shown bathing her daughter, Aria, before school. There is a tenderness to the routine, yet, even in these intimate moments, exhaustion clings to Jania like a second skin. There's no music to lift the tone, no dialogue to fill the air, just the sound of water, breathing, and the small voice of Aria. This is a woman surviving by routine, threading her identity into the rituals of motherhood and caretaking. Before Jania can even leave for work, her landlord arrives at the door. The rent is overdue. No extensions. No kindness. The threat of eviction looms. There is no overt cruelty in his tone, just the deadpan coldness of someone who has become numb to others' struggle. From this moment, the film begins to stack its emotional weight, subtle and devastating, as it portrays a society that dehumanizes those without means. At the grocery store where Jania works, she faces humiliation from a condescending manager and impatient customers. Her uniform is slightly oversized, her shoes worn. Every part of her existence whispers fatigue. When she receives a phone call mid-shift reporting that Aria has had a seizure at home, she drops everything physically and emotionally. The camera follows her running, breathless, through city streets. The scene is unscored, just her gasping, the pounding of her feet, and the anxiety of a mother who may be too late. What follows is a sequence of events that could easily be read as melodramatic if not so grounded in reality. With Aria momentarily stabilized, Jania begins a frantic effort to stabilize their lives. She goes to the bank to cash her check. Without a valid ID, she is refused. The check may as well be Monopoly money. Her utility bills are unpaid, and her apartment is under threat. She tries to explain, to beg, to reason, but she is speaking to a system that doesn't listen. When she goes to Aria's school, she's met by Child Protective Services agents who inform her that a complaint was filed and her child is being removed from her custody. Jania's pleas to keep Aria with her are heartbreaking, her arms reaching for a child already being pulled away. There is no trial, no defense, just bureaucracy steamrolling her maternal identity. These scenes burn with quiet fury. They are not action-driven but despair-driven. Jania is not fighting the system, she is being pulverized by it. What follows is the film's most jarring pivot. Back at the grocery store, now just hours later, armed robbers enter. Jania, still raw and mentally frayed, acts on impulse. In a blur of movement and screams, she grabs a weapon during the scuffle, and shots are fired. One robber is hit. Then, in a moment of confusion and fear, she fatally wounds her boss, who attempts to intervene. She takes the check from the register, not for greed, but to try one last time to buy medicine for Aria. It's not a robbery, it's not even vengeance. It's a desperate act of preservation, made by a woman convinced that she is fighting for her daughter's life. The film refrains from painting Jania as a hero or a villain. Instead, Perry lets the silence and the camera linger on her face, showing the flicker of awareness that she may have crossed a moral Rubicon. Jania's next stop is a local bank, her last hope. She enters intending only to cash her check, only to be met with another denial, no ID, no transaction. This time, her panic becomes action. She pulls out her gun, not with malice, but with the exhausted finality of a person who has run out of options. The bank goes into lockdown. Staff and customers become hostages. It's here that the true core of Straw emerges. The hostage situation isn't a plot device, it is an emotional battleground. Nicole, the bank manager, played by Cherie Shepherd, recognizes Jania. They've seen each other in passing over the years. Nicole tries not just to defuse the situation, but to understand it. Meanwhile, outside, the scene has attracted police, media, and a growing crowd. Detective Kay Raymond, Tayana Taylor, an Army veteran and single mother herself, arrives to negotiate. She refuses to treat Jania as a threat. Through a radio, she speaks to her not as a suspect, but as a mother, as a woman. Slowly, a dialogue begins. The camera crosscuts between the two women, one armed and cornered, the other holding the thin line between de-escalation and tragedy. A phone call from Jania's mother breaks the spell. She delivers a haunting truth. Arya is dead. She died the night before, in the bath. Everything Jania thought she was doing for her daughter, taking her to school, saving her from CPS, buying her medicine, was a hallucination. Her mind, shattered by grief, had created a world where Arya was still alive and reachable. The viewer, like Jania, is forced to rewatch earlier scenes in their memory with new understanding. Her conversations with Arya were one-sided. Her frantic visits to the school and social services were manifestations of psychosis. The entire day has been a woman's unconscious attempt to rewrite fate and bring back the child she couldn't save. In the final act, Jania begins to let go. She releases the hostages, lowering her weapon. Nicole stays behind, unwilling to leave her alone in the moment of collapse. Outside, Kay insists that Jania be taken alive, confronting officers who view her only as a potential shooter. The crowd, watching via livestream and social media, is chanting Jania's name not in protest, but in mourning and solidarity. There's a moment when everything seems to freeze. The camera focuses on Jania's face as she walks out of the bank, arms raised, alone and completely exposed. We expect a bullet. We expect a tragic end. But Perry subverts the narrative. There is no gunshot, no blood, just quiet surrender. She is handcuffed, but not humiliated. The message is clear. Survival itself is an act of resistance. Straw is more than a film. It is a howl, a guttural cry from the soul of every woman who has ever screamed into the void and heard nothing back. It is about motherhood and poverty, but even more so, about the invisible wounds of grief and how society criminalizes mental illness, particularly in black women. Taraji P. Henson delivers the performance of her career, not through dramatics, but through nuance. Her Jania is not crazy. She is broken, suffocated, and abandoned. She is both victim and survivor. The cinematography follows her like a ghost, keeping her centered in every frame, as if the world exists only in relation to her crumbling mind. Ultimately, Straw reminds us that breaking points are never sudden. They are the result of thousands of unseen fractures. And when someone finally snaps, we must ask, what did we miss? What could we have done? Warrings of Thousands is. Warrings' story, a mother's collapse becomes a nation's wake-up call. Straw is more than a film. It is a howl, a guttural cry from the soul of every woman who has ever screamed into the void and heard nothing back. It is about... Straw is more than a film. It is a howl, a guttural cry from the soul of every woman who has ever screamed into the void and heard nothing back. It is about motherhood and poverty, but even more so, about the invisible wounds of grief and how society criminalizes mental illness, particularly in black women. Taraji P. Henson delivers the performance of her career, not through dramatics, but through nuance. Her Jania is not crazy. She is broken, suffocated, and abandoned. She is both victim and survivor. The cinematography follows her like a ghost, keeping her centered in every frame, as if the world exists only in relation to her crumbling mind. Ultimately, Straw reminds us that breaking points are never sudden. They are the result of thousands of unseen fractures. And when someone finally snaps, we must ask, what did we miss? What could we have done? Warrings of Thousands is. Warrings' story, a mother's collapse becomes a nation's wake-up call.